What really happened on the night of October 8th, 1871? Did a cow cause the Great Chicago Fire, or was there a cosmic element involved? Suddenly, at the same time, the deadliest and largest fires across 3 states erupted. Catastrophic fires that seemed to arrive without warning. But history didn't remember them. Instead, it remembered a woman and a cow. Catherine O'Leary was blamed for one of the worst disasters in American history, a claim later proven false, but never fully erased. The story was neat and comforting, and small enough to fit into a headline. Yet on that same night, entire towns vanished in Wisconsin and Michigan. Forests exploded, rivers burned, survivors spoke of blue flames, fire falling from the sky, and a heat that arrived before the fire itself. Tonight, we're going to ask a question most history books avoid. What if the Great Chicago Fire wasn't an isolated accident at all? What if Miss O'Leary was blamed because the real explanation was far more unsettling? To understand the comet theory, we need to talk about a forgotten object in our skies, Comet Bela. First observed in 1772, Bela followed the short, predictable orbit, returning roughly every 6.5 years. But in 1846, astronomers witnessed something rare. The comet split in two. By 1852, both fragments were seen again, and then they vanished. But comets don't simply disappear. They leave behind debris streams of rock, ice, and volatile chemicals. And when Earth passes through one of those streams, the sky doesn't light up with a warning. It rains fire. So what did people say they saw on the ground in 1871? Now we look to see if a comet was involved. The first place we should look isn't Chicago, it's Peshtigo, Wisconsin. On October 8th, 1871, Peshtigo was directly in the path of the deadliest firestorm in American history. The entire town nearly vanished in minutes. But what makes Peshtigo different isn't just how fast it burned, it's how the survivors said the fire behaved. What they described next would challenge every explanation that came after. Balls of fire dropping from the heavens. Men said the air itself was on fire. Houses burst into flames, where no spark had yet touched. A strange blue flame ran along the ground ahead of the fire. It leapt from tree to house before the fire reached them. There was a strange blue light everywhere, and then the buildings caught all at once. The fire showed blue at the edges and between the trees before it turned red. I remember the fire being blue at first, like burning spirits, and only later red and roaring. A roaring filled the air, and the fire whirled like a cyclone. Sparks and burning sand fell in a shower. I saw a greenish blue light on the windward side, an odd ghostly color, before the red wave of fire came. Now we jump over Lake Michigan, over into the town of Manistee, 1871. Along the ground near the mill, I saw a low blue flame, not red, running ahead of the fire as if fed by gas. The fire showed blue at first near the river, a pale blue light that moved quickly before the great flames rose. I noticed a blue-white fire along the timbers before the mill was fully ablaze, like burning vapor rather than flame. At a moment the fire burned with a bluish cast, especially when the wind drove hard along the ground. There was a strange blue light on the docks before they caught, and then, all at once, everything was aflame. Now to the sad story of Williamsonville in northern Michigan. This memorial marks where the town once stood, a town that no longer exists. On October 8th, 1871, 77 people lived here. 60 died on that terrible night. This site is known as Tornado Memorial, named for how survivors described the fire, twisting, roaring, and moving with a terrible speed. As the flames closed in, 7 people climbed into a well and waited as the firestorm passed over them. Only 5 survived. When they were rescued, the town was gone and was never rebuilt. And on that same night, another city was also burning. Now we move on to the Great Chicago Fire, happening simultaneously over 250 miles away. When the fire began in Chicago, the city was already vulnerable. The fire department was exhausted, understaffed, and stretched thin after days of smaller fires. But even at full strength, many witnesses believed it wouldn't have mattered. Survivors and firefighters described flames moving faster than the wind, jumping streets and rivers, and igniting buildings without warning. Fire crews watched entire blocks erupt beyond their reach, as if the rules they knew no longer applied. What burned Chicago that night wasn't just a lack of manpower, it was a fire that looked and behaved unlike anything the city had ever faced. The flames at times burned blue and white upon the roofs, especially when driven by the wind, giving the appearance of gas rather than common fire. Along the eaves and rooftops, I noticed a bluish flame like escaping gas before the buildings fully alight. The fire showed blue flames along the cornices and upper stories before turning red, as though the air itself were burning. At moments, the fire was not red at all, but blue-white, particularly where it ran swiftly over dry rooftops. I observed blue flames flickering at the edges of the fire when the wind was strongest, unlike any ordinary blaze. So what did happen on October 8, 1871? It still doesn't fit neatly in the history books, considering the eyewitnesses. Fires across an entire region, beginning at the same night, at the same time, behaving in ways survivors struggled to explain. In the next video, we'll take a deeper look into the science of comets and why some researchers wonder if the sky played a role. Not to necessarily settle the question, but to ask whether it should have been dismissed at all.